folks, welcome back to my channel. Guys, last June I had posted a video, a how-to video about how to play a simple riff on a 3-string cigar box guitar, and it was just a random thing that I did, and it turned out it's actually one of my top 5 most popular videos on YouTube on my channel. And recently I've had a couple of requests where people have said, can you do more of these? So I decided I'm going to do another one for you. So I'm going to teach you the riff that you just heard, which is a pretty simple little chord progression, and it sounds more complex than it is. It's actually pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and fairly easy to learn. However, because the strumming pattern that you heard is pretty complex, I'm going to actually break it down into like 3 parts. So first I'm going to do a simplified fingering with a simplified strumming. Then I'm going to do a more complex fingering with the simplified strumming, and then finally the more complex fingering and the more complex strumming. And honestly, don't get too caught up in the strumming, because if you want to change it up and kind of strum your own pattern, that's fine. The idea is there, and it's just an idea to get you started. But that's what I'm going to show you guys. Now, before we start, this will work on any 3-string cigar box guitar that's tuned in the root 5 root fashion. So this particular guitar is tuned A, E, A, and that riff will work great on it. Now, it doesn't matter if your guitar is not tuned that way. I have here my hobo fiddle right next to me. This is tuned G, D, G. Guys, I'm going to start out by explaining a simplified strumming pattern. So what I'm doing in that riff is I'm playing a lot of up and downs. So for the sake of learning it, we're going to break that down and just going to do 4 downstrokes for each measure. And the one that has the hammer on will sound like 5. See, but it's only 4. So for the sake of this first example, that's going to be your, actually the first 2 examples, that's going to be your strumming pattern. All right, and then now I'm going to show you the less complex fingering. Okay, so this is how the less complex fingering goes right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to strum all 3 strings through this whole thing. All 3 strings are going to be strummed, but I'm only going to fret this bottom string or the high string. That's all I'm going to do. Watch what I do here. Again, this is going to be a simplified version, so it's going to sound a little different, but it's still going to sound like the same riff. Let me show you. Okay, so that's it. And that's the basics. And what's interesting about this simplified strumming pattern, the simplified, fingering pattern, the simplified fingering pattern and the complex fingering pattern is the same on this string. The only difference is in the simple one, we leave out any bass notes that are up on the top strings or the lower strings. So what you're gonna wanna do to get this, you start with your first finger on the 2nd fret of the high string. Remember, everything's on the high string for this example, okay? And you're gonna hammer it on to the 4th fret. So that's the first note, okay? And then we're gonna do 3 more of this note. So it starts off like this, okay? So now let's add the next note. So you're gonna do that. All you're gonna do is slide that index finger, or excuse me, that ring finger up to the 5th fret. So 2 hammer on 4, 2, 3, 4, slide up to the 5th fret, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's what we've got so far. Okay, and then we're gonna repeat that again, right? And then we're gonna go to the 2nd fret and do 4. So it's gonna sound like this. Here you go, here's what we have so far. Okay, now the second time through, it's gonna be almost the same. We're just gonna change it up a little bit on the last part. So play that whole thing again. So here we go from the top. And then this is where we change it up. So the change up, we go 2 on the 4th, 2 on the 2nd, and then 4 on the open. All right, let me show you the whole thing again, contiguous, so you can see it. That's it. That is the main riff. And there's that little solo part. We're going to come back to that in a second. But that is the main riff, guys. So that's what you want to practice. And the nice thing about this riff is you can play it fast or slow and it always sounds good. So you can play. Or you can do. Oops, I'm sorry. I'm adding too much there. Hold on. So you can play it fast, slow, however you want. It's a universal riff. So now when I play that whole part twice, and then I go into the little solo part. So let's play so you'll play that whole thing again, so it'll sound like this. Then I add that little solo part, or whatever you want to call it, that little lead part. And again, this one, you can just strum all 3 strings, but you're only going to fret this high string, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to start again with that 2 hammer on to the 4. But what we're going to do is we're just going to keep working our way up the neck. So we go 2 hammer on to the 4, then 4 hammer on to the 5, 5 hammer on to the 7, 7 hammer on to the 9, 9 to the 10, and 10 to the 12, okay? Okay, easy, right? It's just that, just repeat that same strumming pattern, that hammer on and the 4 down strums, okay? That's the first half. Now the second half, we're just gonna go back down, but we're gonna go down a lot faster than we went up. So remember to go up. We did the 2, 2, 3, 4, do 2, 3, 4, do 2, 3, 4, do 2, 3, 4, do 2, 3, 4. Now to go down, we're going to do it in half the time. And we're going to just go 10, 9, 7, 5, 4. But this is what it's going to sound like in time. So I'm going to do, I'll do just that second part. Or actually, I'll do the whole thing so you can hear it in context. And then you're right back into the, you got me? Okay. So let me play a riff in, play that part, a lead in riff, that part, and then out. Okay? Now, we're gonna add just a couple of bass notes, but just a couple, guys. For the most part, you already know 95% of the riff, because we're just gonna add a couple bass notes, that's it. But it makes it sound a lot richer, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So, we're still gonna start off the same. But now, when we go to the, normally we would go. What we're gonna do is when we hit these 4, we're also going to fret the second note on the middle string, the second fret on the middle string. So it's a little bit of a stretch if you have a long scale like this, but so you're gonna want your pinky on the 5th fret of the high string, and you're gonna want your middle or your first finger on the 2nd fret. Jeez, let me try that again. You're gonna want your pinky on the 5th fret of the high string, and you're gonna want your first finger on the 2nd fret of the middle string, and the top string is open. Okay, so here's what that sounds like. Got it? Okay, that's our first bass note. Then our second bass note, so remember we got our, then we're gonna do this again. And then instead of just playing this note, we're also gonna put our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the high string and our first finger on the 2nd fret of the low string. See how much richer that sounds? So let me show you that again. Okay, now remember the second part, how we do that, and we go down. Remember that when we learned it the first time, we did the at the end? Okay, we're still gonna do that. That doesn't change, but on the very last note, we're gonna take I use my ring finger, but you can use whatever's most comfortable, and we're gonna fret the 4th fret on the low string. Okay, so all we've done here is add 3 bass notes. Okay, for that first chord, no change. For the second chord, we added this note here, then no change, and then for that other chord, we added this note here. And then finally on that last chord, we're gonna add this note. Other than that, it's exactly the same. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. So it's actually a pretty easy addition. You're just adding a couple of bass notes to the riff that you already know. And then that part with the walk up, it's all still exactly the same. Exactly the same. So let me play you what we've got so far, just so you can do a sanity check. There you go. By the way, I got a tune. I could hear it already went out of tune during that. So guys, by the way, if you are more of a novice player, if you're kind of learning, I mean, don't be shy. Learn that first one, practice it until you get it good, and then go on to the second part and learn the bass notes, and then practice that till you've got it good, and then come on to this third part and learn the strumming pattern. There's nothing that says you need to do all this in the same day. Now, if you're an advanced player, you're probably gonna figure it out right from the beginning, and you don't even need me to explain it, but the point is, like, this is to have fun with, guys. Don't stress yourself out. Just have fun with this riff. But now let's add the more complex strumming. So remember, we're doing this. And now for this next, what we're gonna do next is we're just gonna make that strumming pattern a little more complex, but all the chords, everything you've learned so far on the left hand is staying exactly the same. No changes there. But remember that very first one we do that. And that little hammer on is what really gives it that groove, right? So we're gonna add a couple of upstrokes in there. It's gonna sound like this. So you see what I'm doing? I'm doing the... I'm throwing that upstroke in there. So I'm throwing that little upstroke in there. And then when I change the chord, I'm gonna do the... See that I'm adding a couple upstrokes. Okay? And then that's basically everything you need to know right there. The whole rest of the thing is based off of that. But what that's gonna sound like now when I play it, but the way that I play that to get that cool kind of syncopated groove is I just do more like, if I'm just playing the strum, it's more like this. Okay, so now that we got the more complex part on the main riff, how do we play the little solo part? And really, remember guys, you're playing something kind of like this. Just play that same rhythm, but on those hammer-ons. So it's gonna sound something like this. And on the way down, we just kind of do the... So that's kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2. Yes. So now let's put it all together, the whole thing, same as I played it at the beginning, and it sounds like this. Have fun.